Hey everyone, it's Jason from GameRave.com, otherwise known as Danger Boy, and this is GameRaveTV. So we continue our journey of the Where Are They Now with the original PlayStation launch, but this time we're going to focus on the accessories. No game system is worth its weight unless it's got accessories to go with it. Now, what's weird is, in the modern day, those accessories are kind of few and far between now. It's basically just a charging station and maybe, like, a controller holder or something. Now, for our younger viewers, there are a lot of amenities we take for granted with modern day game systems, like wireless connectivity with the controllers, built-in Wi-Fi, and so forth. So some of the accessories that we'll be talking about today will come as quite a surprise to some of you younger guys. But for those older gamers like me, not that old, we begin our journey. We'll start with the big guy and work our way down. The first accessory on the block from launch day was the analog flight stick. Now, for those of you that don't play airplane games, the analog flight stick was pretty much a behemoth for its time for various reasons. One, it was huge. Seriously, it's huge! It was quite literally about 1.5 feet long, about 1.5 feet tall with the analog sticks. Now, I said analog sticks, and that's an interesting thing because the flight controller was actually the first PlayStation controller to have analog sticks. When the system first launched, it was still digital controllers, just like the Super Nintendo, Genesis, etc. This brought on some interesting gameplay elements with the controller because besides being used for Ace Combat, you could also use it for games like Armored Core, Burning Road supported it for a racing game. Oddly enough, it's how you drove stick. Behemoth of a controller that was kind of faded to the wayside once Sony released the original analog controller for the PlayStation, because it had a second button press that allowed you to go into flight stick mode, so you could actually use the controller instead of having to use a giant, controller stick. Now, one of the other accessories that really didn't get much use, but was extremely helpful in the games that support it, was the mouse. It was really helpful just because trying to plow through all those menus with an analog stick or even just a D-pad was like just forever. The mouse actually allowed for free movement. Some games actually supported the mouse in mysterious ways, like some of the actual light gun games allowed the support for the mouse, which made shooting things a lot more interesting than going pew 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 at the screen. The next accessory we're going to cover is the multi-tap. Now, remember I said about those amenities with modern day gaming and so forth? Back in the day, you could only plug in 2 controllers at a time to the PlayStation. So they had what's called the multi-tap. And the multi-tap allowed you to plug up to 4 controllers into the tap and then into the system, so you could have 4 to 5 players in case the game supported it. Now, with the multi-tap, that brought on crazy, awesome things like 4-player NBA Jam, so you had the true arcade experience at home. You could play multiple people in sports games. You could actually have friends be on different teams and so forth. And it just brought this whole new cool dynamic to it. Now, granted, multi-taps have been around since the Super Nintendo, Genesis, and even the Nintendo. But what made the multi-tap special for the PlayStation was actually what was located above the controller port, which leads us to the memory card. Ooh. Now, for those of you who don't understand how life-changing these little bastards were, take a moment to go back a couple years. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Genesis all had save data, but it was saved to the cartridge. There was no way to take it with you where you trade the game in, loan it to a friend, etc. Your friend would have to either overwrite your save data or hope to God there was a second save slot. When the Sega CD and the Sega Saturn came along, and to a degree the Neo Geo, they had backup cartridges. You could at least store your data off the system just in case the battery went dead. So what made these guys special wasn't the fact that the card itself existed, because the Neo Geo had done that. It was the fact that there were multiple slots on the system. You could now have everyone save their individual stats, aka NBA Jam, just like in the arcade. You could create your own players in sports games and bring them and upload them. You could create your own wrestlers and bring them to other people's game systems. When Fighter Maker and RPG Maker came along, you could actually create your own games and drop them on one of these guys and give it to your friend. For lack of a better description, these guys were basically early USB drives. The memory card was so impactful to the PlayStation's lifestyle that it created an entire subclass of accessories and a whole separate class of friendship, so to speak. Back in the day, whole message board forums were literally set up just for people to start exchanging memory cards by literally mailing them to each other to transfer save data, to pick up players and so forth. And that demand and that craze ended up bringing us accessories from Interact like the Dex drive and the virtual memory system and the floppy drive, etc. Now the Dex drive I've actually talked about on Facebook years ago. For those of you who didn't see that, the Dex drive was essentially a memory card copier, and you could copy the files to your computer and then transfer them to each other through email. And that allowed for a whole new world of just creation and exploration as far as like doing different things, especially when you combine it with the Game Shark. That was quite literally a game changer for the memory card. And last but not least was the link cable. Now, again, for our younger viewers, you might freak out at this. In today's world, we have online gameplay, we sync up to our wireless routers, we plug in our Ethernet ports, and we play with a bunch of people online. With the PlayStation, it had a nifty little feature that involved the link cable, and it basically required 2 TVs, 2 systems, 2 copies of the game, and the link cable. And some games had some interesting ways to use it. For example, in Bushido Blade 2, you could actually link up and change the game from a third-person view to a first-person fighting game. Essentially, it allowed people to have their own TVs and not have the split-screen problem, so you actually couldn't see what your friend was doing on the other side. It also allowed you to play racing games full screen, just like as if you were sitting in an arcade side by side. The link cable, despite having good support, really kind of fell to the wayside, and it didn't help that Sony eventually removed the port from the PlayStation system, thus rendering it useless. And there you have it, the launch accessories for the PlayStation. Now, while most of the accessories we've shown here today have been long forgotten through time thanks to Wi-Fi or wireless connection to the controllers, there are some, like the memory card, whose legacy will never ever be topped. And even though we support server-side, cloud-side, save data and so forth, there was really nothing quite like holding that little memory card and knowing that was your baby to transfer stuff to. That being said, guys, we'll see you next week on Pause Mode. We will return to the letter game for a little bit in the next DRTV. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week on Pause Mode. Take care, guys. Have a good one.